London, Europe's largest metropolis, is deserving of its reputation as a global mecca for many of the finest things in life. Over the centuries, many of the world's greatest creative minds, artists and craftspeople have found both a home and the freedom to hone their skills in this inspiring city. This week, the Luxury Channel goes in search of some of the capital city's most exclusive and extraordinary artisans. We're invited into the workshops of the world's most sought-after sporting gun manufacturers. We go in search of Savile Row's original tailors. We meet with a theatrical wig maker to the stars, see behind the scenes at England's most respected cricket bat maker, and savour the finest smoked salmon in London's East End. We're in Mayfair, in our search for the finest London artisans, and we're here to see Purdy, the English gun makers who've been making beautiful guns for generations. I'm here to meet Nigel Beaumont, Managing Director of Purdys, who also happens to be the great-grandson of one of the original founders of this great London establishment. We're in the long room at Purdys. Can you tell us a bit more about this room and the building and its history?
This whole building on the corner of South Alby Street here was built by the second Purdy, James Purdy the Younger. It was opened by him in 1881 as his gun emporium. So it was from this room that he controlled all his gun makers.
Today, Purdy is recognised as possibly the world's leading sports gun manufacturer. Indeed, to own a Purdy is considered a rare privilege.
It was a question of turning out the best work to attract the best clients. It is our attention to the fineness of the making of the guns and the backup service. That is how Purdys has survived ever since.
A philosophy that attracted some very important clients as far back as 1838, when Queen Victoria purchased a pair of Purdy pistols from the founder of the company, James Purdy. The most iconic Purdy gun is the Purdy side-by-side 12-bore shotgun with the legendary Purdy ejection system, patented in 1880 and still very much in force today. So can you take me through the unique action and your main points of the weapon?
This really is the iconic product that Purdy built his reputation on. It's what is known as a easy opening action. When the gun is opened, it opens itself.
Right.
So there's very little effort in opening the gun and having the cartridge eject. That is an inherent, easy opening gun.
May I try the action?
Certainly.
So it opens very easy, and then only slightly harder than a conventional shotgun to close.
That's right.
And over. And I note here we have another example which a lot more intricate on the engraving.
This is our over and under gun.
And do they normally have more engraving, or is this just on this version here?
No, you can have whatever you want engraved on the gun, within reason, of course. This gun has some gold inlays and a large scroll engraved at the surface as well.
I notice as well the sheen on the wood is amazing. What you use to get that sort of lustrous, mirror-like and absolutely perfect finish on it, it's spotless.
This is what they call an oil finish. When I'm touching the stock there, what I'm doing is touching the wood itself.
Yes.
It's not like a varnish or a French polish. The finish here is migrated into the wood. It's a mixture of linseed oil, beeswax and paint dry. I mean, some people describe these as functional art. That is very close to what I would describe this as. It is also described quite often as men's jewellery.
The Purdy workshops are to be found several miles away in London's Hammersmith. There are 7 stages in the manufacture of a Purdy shotgun, which translate into 7 different trades or crafts. Every Purdy artisan has had a minimum of 5 years apprenticeship in the fine art of gun making before specialising in a particular discipline. For instance, the barrel maker has been fine-tuning his craft for over 30 years now. From the complexities of the action and the unique cartridge ejection system, to the finish on the stock and the exquisite detailed engraving, the Purdy artisan is an absolute master of his craft. We've talked about how there are 7 different stages of gun making. How many pieces actually go up to make a Purdy gun?
About 130 individual pieces in a sidelock gun. All of those pieces are made by us here in this factory.
The Purdy workshop produces on average a mere 90 guns a year for as few as 40 to 50 clients, testament to the Purdy name's exclusivity and the rarity of the guns themselves. The big question is, what would one expect to pay for a sort of standard side-by-side?
It's between 70 and 80,000 pounds. Well, of course, you can go up to whatever you like. Depends on what kind of decoration you have. I mean, they could double in price. Some of them have even trebled in price. It does depend on the decoration and the engraving.
I'm left believing that the name Purdy remains a real tribute to London's reputation as a nucleus for true artisanry. A visit to the United Kingdom's capital city would not be complete without a night out in the popular West End. London theatre is as good as it gets. And when it comes to the backstage artists and craftspeople who form the backbone of every show, London has many of the industry's finest. One such acclaimed artisan is Richard Morby, theatrical wig maker to the stars.
Wig making is undoubtedly a great craft. It is something which has been passed down over centuries, and it is an old-fashioned skill and something which should be cherished.
Richard's company, Wig Specialities, is something of an institution in the entertainment world. His introduction to the stage was when he met the legendary drag entertainer, the late Danny LaRue, over 30 years ago.
Yes, the years with Danny LaRue, I always called it baptism by fire. Because, I was a hairdresser. I knew nothing about wigs except how to style a head of hair. And I think this is the essence of it. People forget that it is a head of hair. You've made it, yes. So you need to go at it as though you were dressing hair. You don't think, oh, it's a wig. It will never look natural if you do that. So yes, the Danny LaRue time was extremely important for me, and because of the wealth of knowledge that I got, not only about how to present things on the stage, but also how to deal with performers. And that's something you need to know a lot about in this business.
For 10 years, Richard travelled the world with Danny LaRue as his personal assistant and hairdresser, a job which included up to 30 wig changes in a single performance.
And then eventually it came that I thought, I can't live somebody else's life for the rest of mine. I would like occasionally to go home in the evening because you're in the theatre till 11 o'clock at night. And I came here to Wig Specialities, and now I can do what I want almost when I want.
Richard's list of clients reads like a who's who from stage and screen. The London production of Hairspray, Richard Harris, Ewan McGregor, Angelina Jolie, Madonna, Matt Lucas, Graham Norton, the list goes on and on.
I'm always very proud to say, and I always say it in biographies, I'm personal wig maker to Sir Sean Connery and the great Dame Edna Everage. And what that really means is that they are so loyal, they never go to anybody else. Sean will ring and say, hi, I'm coming in. And of course, Edna, well, that's a whole trip, and I just love every minute of it.
The process of crafting and manufacturing the perfect wig is so much more than purely reinventing a head of hair. I asked Richard to explain.
I don't think really that anybody realises the amount of work which goes into making a wig. It arrives at a theatre, it's done, people think that's fine. But with every hair being sewn in, I think that's the best way to describe it, sewn in a way it's a little bit like crochet work, that sort of thing. And people take a long time to learn how to do this. And a full wig, to put in every hair by hand is going to take even an experienced person a good 4 to 5 days to do. So it's quite intense. But there's a lot of preparation before all that. We have to choose the hair, we have to make sure it's the right texture to work for the hairstyle that we're creating. The hair often has to be coloured. It might even have to be permed if you want a particular curl, although sometimes I'm able to get naturally curly hair from hair merchants. Then you get them on the stage and you look and you think, actually, this doesn't work. So you go back to the drawing board and you have to reset it and there's an awful amount of work involved.
And of course, the disciplines of creating a wig for film or television differ hugely from that of the theatre.
There is a big difference between the work that you do for the stage or the theatre as opposed to the work for film and television. Because that camera, which of course I'm staring at now, is unforgiving. And when you're talking about natural hairlines, we have to use incredibly fine materials for the fronts of our wigs so that the cameras don't pick up. And now with all this high definition, it's becoming more and more difficult to achieve. On the stage, you can use something a little stronger, you won't see it, and also it has to last longer.
And to round up, Richard, a Danny LaRue story?
The Danny LaRue stories, of course, are legend. One of my favourites, we had a visit to the theatre from a famous American actress and singer called Alice Faye, who I got on particularly well with. And the following week, I was thrilled and I ran into his dressing room, he was making up as usual, and I said, Danny, I'm so excited. Alice Faye sent me a postcard to say thank you. Really, love, he said. I got a letter.
I'm here on the outskirts of London as I continue my journey in search of London's finest artisans. I've come to Salix, makers of what some people believe to be the best handmade cricket bats in the world. As a cricketer myself, I can't wait to see how these sensational bats are made and to meet Andrew Kember, the company's founder. Good morning, Adrian. Thank you for welcoming us to Salix. Tell me, how do you get into making cricket bats?
Well, it started for me with just a love of the game. I just wanted to play cricket pretty much every hour of the day. But I also grew up on a farm where we had a lot of willow trees growing. And I always, just the perfect gift for me, Christmas or birthday, was a cricket bat. But I also wanted to know how they were made. So I spent a lot of time sort of cutting branches off willow trees and just chopping around.
Cricket is a real icon of Englishness. What makes a great cricket bat?
Well, the quality of the wood is absolutely key. Cricket bat willow is actually a different strain from a natural growing willow that you might find in along a hedgerow. And it's cultivated, it is literally farmed, so young cricket bat willow will be planted out, they will grow, mature over 20 years and be cut, and the trunk will be used for bat making. Once you've got the key material, the willow, then from there, of course, it's the way the bat's made, the pickup, how much wood you're leaving, and the quality of the handles.
Do the designs change a lot, or how do you come up with your designs?
Well, we use a basic design for probably all models. I mean, wood in the driving area is absolutely key, but then you might want to make a bat that's got a slightly lower driving area or maybe a slightly higher driving area. Some bats are going to be heavier, some bats are going to be lighter.
So what makes a Salix bat different?
Well, I think probably just the dedication to each individual grading process. I think that's very important because we're not making the lower grades. We're creating margin in the higher price bats, which enables us to spend more time and dedicate more energy into each and every piece of bat or every piece of wood that we actually work with.
As a handmade product, they're more expensive. What sort of people tend to buy your bats?
It's a complete cross-section. We will have people who are playing on the village green who have always wanted a nice handmade bat, and then we'll be making bats for people playing first-class cricket. So really across the spectrum of people playing cricket.
A Salix cricket bat will set you back between £200 and £300. It strikes me as a more than fair price for one of the most sought-after bespoke cricket bats in the world. So, Andrew, tell me, how many bats have you made in your career?
Well, it's difficult to work out really, but at least 35,000.
You'd say about a couple of thousand runs for a bat?
I think that's probably a good estimate for a bat's life. I mean, a couple of thousand can be a season for a good player, a couple of thousand can be several seasons for an average player. So
you have notched up about 7 million runs in the bank.
Well, there's the thought. I mean, I've never really thought about it before, but yeah, absolutely. Let's hope that was all English runs.
Coming up, we discover the true history behind the tuxedo dinner suit at the original Savile Row tailor, Henry Poole, and find out why London's East End is home to the purveyors of the world's finest smoked salmon. When it comes to the fine art of superior tailoring, nothing quite matches a bespoke and tailored suit from London's famous Savile Row. In our search for London's finest artisans, we've come here to Henry Poole, in the very heart of Savile Row. Henry Poole opened the very first tailor's shop on Savile Row in 1822. And with clients as prestigious as Charles Dickens and Napoleon III, Savile Row became the place to go for tailoring in London. And before long, other tailors began moving into the street, making it the mecca for bespoke tailoring that we know today. Today, the store is managed by Simon Cundy. Simon is the 7th Cundy to fill the role, and I can't wait to talk to him and find out a little bit more about the shop's history, and in particular about the origins of one very famous suit.
Thank you very much for welcoming us here at Henry Poole, the company that bears your family name. An immense history here. To me, black tie has been synonymous to me with smart dress for the last 150 years. And it really started with you guys. Can you tell us a bit more about
Well,
that?
absolutely. I mean, we are in fact famed for inventing clothes and the tuxedo as it became known as, but origins come from here. In fact, it was Edward VII, the great dandy king, where we actually had cut off his tails for his household evening dinner parties, where a gentleman by the name of Mr. Potter came over from America with his wife and actually dined at Sandringham and admired the actual costume and of course asked where it came from. Well, at that point Henry Poole made one up and he went back to the States, of course living in Tuxedo Park, where it was eventually named and famed by Lorillard for copying it too, but it was actually sent from here across the pond and named the tuxedo.
The cost of a bespoke Henry Poole suit starts at just over £2,500 and has been known to reach £15,000 for a bespoke Vicuna wool suit.
What to you defines the Poole suit that I could see someone walking down the street with?
Well, typically we love a little bit of drape, and that's obviously the shape in the chest area here.
Yep.
We do like a high gorge, which is very much a Poole stature, and little sleeve heads here. That's typical of the sort of Poole thing with a high waist. And then there's all smaller details, such as the 2-hole buttons, which is very much our house style, and plus also our clubhouse stripe lining is obviously our own style. And then Poole thing is very, very discreet, where we actually have the label at the back of the neck, rather than anything flashy inside the coats here.
How much has the actual job changed with the cutters and sewers?
Obviously the materials have changed. The actual materials we use today are much lighter, much more technical, much more blended. So we have to adapt to this sort of way in terms of how they change and how they react when we put them together. But the actual method is still made the same sort of way, really.
There is another side to Henry Poole's business where adherence to tradition is taken to another level. It is a discipline which demands a different set of skills and a lot more patience. Heading up the small livery department, Keith Levitt is in charge of maintaining the many raw warrants that adorn Henry Poole's shop walls. Keith is continuing a tradition of livery making that stretches back hundreds of years.
Livery, obviously very important to Henry Poole. How does it differ, the livery side, from what goes on through the doors of the more day-to-day suits?
Livery tailoring and military tailoring generally is a different kind of work altogether. It's like running a marathon making one of these, because with 60 plus yards of gold to be sewn on by hand,
That's a lot.
It's closer to light engineering than tailoring. I mean, one of those livery uniforms there will take about 6 weeks to produce. The ones that we're replacing now, of which that's a specimen, was made in 1902, and it's just come out of service. A lot of the old ones, in fact, the tailors themselves will have written their name on the sleeve lining.
I hope you do the same.
Yes.
Glad
Always,
to hear it.
yes.
And hopefully in 100 years' time someone will come out and go, you know what, this one's got a few more years wearing it.
With a bit of luck.
As fascinating as the history of tailoring is, it means nothing if there is not a supply of fresh-faced young apprentices waiting in the wings to continue the traditions. One of Henry Poole's brightest young stars is Rory Duffy, winner of the prestigious Golden Shears Award, Britain's highest accolade for aspiring tailors.
Rory, congratulations first of all. The Golden Shear for this year, a very prestigious award. You've won it. What does it mean to you?
Well, it means an awful lot to me now. It's something I've aspired to since coming to London and to Savile Row, and to have won it is fantastic. It's absolutely marvellous now.
So tell me more about your mentor.
My mentor was Paul Frearson, and Paul has been in the trade now for over 50 years. He has certain qualities that you need as a mentor. There's a special bond that grows between yourself and your mentor, because you're spending 8 hours a day or 5 days a week with this one person. Everything that I do now I attribute to him. Whenever I make a coat, my coats are to look like Paul's coats, because he's the man who trained me. As in that would be a Paul Frearson coat. And in a few years' time that'll be a Rory Duffy coat, which would look remarkably like one designer.
It's the next generation, so if you don't have that, then obviously it's like a dying star. You have to have the next succession of quality tailoring and product to survive. At the moment it's quite fashionable. We certainly have many resumes coming through the door, but it does take possibly around 5 years to actually become a qualified craft tailor.
I'm in London's East End, and it's very early in the morning. I've come to H. Foreman Son to meet Lance Foreman, great-grandson of the company's founder. The Foreman family have been smoking salmon to the very highest standards for over 100 years, and I'm really looking forward to trying what some people consider the best smoked salmon in the world. Lance's great-grandfather, Harry Foreman, arrived in London's East End from Russia over a century ago, and today Lance continues a great family tradition.
Lance, thank you very much for welcoming us here today. Your company is steeped in history. Can you tell us about it, please?
Sure. Well, a lot of people think that smoked salmon is an ancient Scottish tradition, but actually it all started in the East End of London. It came over to the East End in the late 19th century, when you had people coming over from Eastern Europe, settling in the East End, and they brought over the techniques of salmon smoking with them. And it was basically a way of preserving fish, because refrigeration hardly existed in those days. And indeed, when they first settled here, they brought over salmon in barrels of salt water from the Baltic, and they would smoke it and enjoy it amongst their own community. And it was only when they saw Scottish salmon coming down to Billingsgate Market every summer during the season that they thought, well, let's try smoking the Scottish fish instead. And the quality was just so much better, partly because the fish was fresher. And smoked Scottish salmon then took off as a gourmet food. So it was smoked Scottish salmon, but it was smoked in the East End of London.
Obviously, your London base is important to you. Why have you remained here?
Because the important thing for us is to be able to get to our clients very, very quickly. We run our operation here as a bespoke operation. Every single side that's sliced will be sliced to order. So we will receive an order from a top hotel or restaurant or food store, and then once we've received that, we will then carve it to order. We don't hold a lot of stock just ready to ship out. So everything is as fresh as it can possibly be.
The process starts at the crack of dawn when the freshly caught Atlantic salmon arrives at the Foreman Smokehouse in the East End's Fish Island. The best smoked salmon should be eaten as fresh as possible, so time is of the essence as the fish is filleted, smoked and carved by one of the many skilled staff in the smokehouse. Now I think it's probably time to stop talking about the fish and to get stuck in and taste the delicacy for myself.
Well, there's a plate that's just been waiting there, and I can't wait to try some.
Okay. Here we go. We have the Smoked Salmon Challenge, we call it.
Excellent.
We have farmed Scottish salmon over here and wild Scottish salmon over here. And what you can see with the farmed salmon is that it's just glistening a little bit more with oil. It's a fattier fish because the fish live their life in cages, they don't get the exercise. Wild salmon They start off their lives in the river, they swim off to Greenland and they stay there for anywhere between 3 to 5 years, do a lot of exercise, burn off their fat.
So which should we try first, the wild or the farmed?
I would say start with the farmed salmon because it's a little bit more delicate, and then you'll build up to the wild.
Are fingers okay?
Yeah, fingers are fine. Fingers are
Excellent.
fine. What you should be tasting there is the freshness of the salmon. You shouldn't be getting too much smoke in your mouth, you shouldn't be getting too much salt, you certainly shouldn't be getting any sugar. Okay, so you've tried the farmed, compare with the wild.
With great pleasure.
Now you will get a different texture, a much more melt in the mouth texture, and the flavours just stay with you longer. They're just much more complex. Hard to describe it. You've got to taste it to know it.
Lance, thank you very much indeed, and I can honestly say that it's the very finest smoked salmon I've ever tasted, and I definitely have to take some home. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
London is an epicentre of true craftsmanship, home to hundreds of extraordinary and talented artisans. How reassuring it is to know that these skills, passed down from generation to generation, are still truly treasured and celebrated.